Creative Magic Club.
What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I'm here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today. We have with us Arwa Ali. She is an astrologer and an astrocartographer with a background in nutrition and psychology. And she helps women who want to align their life and business and really find the ideal place for them to thrive. Especially those of us who are sick of hearing generalized interpretations of astrology. She's here to give us some practical advice, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. So, hi, Arwa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we dive in, I want to talk a lot about astrocartography, and but first, I want to know, how did you get here? How did you get to doing this work?
So, I was always interested in figuring me out. This is why I got into psychology. That's what I studied in university in England. Um, and then, so, so I got into psychology because I wanted to understand me. Obviously, that like I eventually I wanted to help people at the end, but I thought I need to understand me first. So I did my psychology degree. I did my master's. I wanted to be a researcher. So I did a lot of years of studying, but then I wanted to take a break and move away to Asia. And I did a crazy thing picking English teaching and teaching kids, two things that I thought I don't really like. I never ever want to be a teacher and I never ever want to deal with kids. But I did that because I just desperately needed a break and I picked the furthest country away from me. And that was like 2016. So what's that, 5, 6 years ago, and I never went back to England since then. So, like after my psychology degree, I ended up studying nutrition because nutrition was something I had to dig into because it was a personal journey. I suffered a lot of health problems in my early years. Um, but then when I was in China, what happened is that I realized that health is deeper than food and exercise. Health is spiritual and health is emotional. And it was in China where I learned about chakras, about spiritual healing, about emotional body. And I did get into astrology before then, so like when I was in university. Um, but it was something in China that made me go back to like astrology made a lot more sense after I studied all those different things. So I have a lot of like different interests, but astrology was the tool. And why I choose to do astrology today was the tool that brought everything together. Because I can look at your chart and instead of like figuring out a nutrition or something specific, like your birth chart tells me the root of everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. That's so interesting how you use the chart to support people with nutrition and their like specific physical needs. I'm curious especially when you talk about like the root, what are some of the areas of the chart that you look at to kind of get to that?
So your Lilith placement, your Chiron, where you have a lot of like weaknesses, where you have determined planets, um, yeah, your South Node and North Node, a lot of those like deeper that tells you the deeper like and the cause of let's say where you're feeling stuck or blockages.
Right, because I guess I mean, this is, I went through a lot of health issues and came to this realization that at the root, it really is like a spiritual, emotional cause. So I can see how, yeah, you can get to those through the chart. And yeah, like I tried for so long with nutrition and lifestyle changes and, and I got so far with that, but then it just became so obvious to me that there was like a whole other level that my intuition was calling me to explore, that really made, move the needle in helping me recover from some chronic health situations. So that's so cool. I've never actually heard anyone talk about using astrology for that. I love that. Um,
Not an
so
expert in it yet, but it is something I definitely think about doing eventually, like medical astrology. Um, just because nutrition is so complex. But why I picked astrology is because it's so individual. Like I'm looking, like
mhm,
my path is not the same. Even if we have the same chronic problems,
right.
my path to healing that is different than yours. And I believe astrology helps us with that, along with other, modalities, but astrology can guide us.
Yeah, 100%. I love that so much. So tell me about your journey with astrocartography and, how that has influenced your own decisions and where you've moved and spent time in your life.
So I've moved a lot. I was born in the United Arab Emirates. I moved to England when I was in my teens, 14, 15, with my family, immigrated there. But even before that, we moved a lot. We went to Malaysia. We were thinking about moving there. We traveled quite a lot. Thailand with my dad. So he's a Gemini, so he moved us a lot. Um, but when I moved to England, that's where I stayed for almost 15 years. Did my high school, did my university, did my master's, and then I needed a break. I wanted to do English teaching abroad, like for a year, just to take a break and come back. But that year never ended. That was like 7 years ago, and I never went back. And honestly, like traveling was not something I purposely was like seeking. I just followed my heart. But the chart ruler, the rule of my chart is Mars, and it's in the ninth house. And then I have Jupiter in the 12th house. So, and then my North Node in Sagittarius. So everything is abroad. Everything is not in like, it's very clear that this person is going to move a lot, even though, and that didn't actually really hit me until I went back to my place of birth last year. So after China, I stayed there for almost 3 years, and then I had this calling, like that this chapter was ended. But before leaving, I actually went to Egypt, and my story with Egypt is interesting. This is a place I was obsessed about since I was really little. And now when I look at the astrocartography, it makes very sense. It goes through my sun line, which is my purpose. And I didn't know that obviously like a few years ago when I was China, but I went to Egypt and it was only like a 10-day trip where I realized my story, my chapter in China was over and there's a place that I need to go to. So once I came back from Egypt, I prayed and I asked and it was very clear, Mexico. So that's where I went. Um, so I've moved a lot, and it was until COVID when I got into astrology much more deeper, and that's when I got into astrocartography. My understanding of it was very general. Your sun line is where you shine, your Jupiter is where your abundance. But when I looked back at all the places that I've traveled to, it wasn't exactly like it didn't really align with the general interpretation. So yeah, that's how I got into it. But also, of course, some places once I understood it deeper, it made a lot of sense. Like it made sense how come I went to Egypt, and that's where I knew what I was like. I was meant to move. And when I moved to Mexico, that's where I actually met my husband, and that's where I also started my business on my Jupiter line. So yeah, people know me as moving a lot, and that's how I ended up being like doing astrocartography, because I was able to connect my personal experiences, also what I've seen in other people's charts with astrocartography. It made like perfect sense to me.
And okay, this is interesting to me because, like, a lot of conversations I have with my single friends, and often they're like, "Oh, I'm getting this urge to move," and I'm like, I feel like the universe is playing chess with you and like your person, and it's like you have to show up in the right place at the right time to meet that person. And I really feel like that happened with me and my husband because we actually moved to Toronto. He moved from Iran, I moved from the UK, in 2006, and we were both there. And I did a semester at University of Toronto, so we were both studying in the same place. But he was 3 years younger than me, and I had a boyfriend at the time. So I know, like, even if I had met him then, I he probably wouldn't have been on my radar, you know. But then it was in 2011 we both moved to Montreal to do our masters, and then he became our roommate and we moved in, and it was like the stars aligned, you know, we were ready. And I wasn't even planning on doing a master's. I just wanted to stay in Canada, and I just applied on a whim, and I heard Montreal was cool. And it was like really just following my intuition, like following the nudges. Like I felt like everywhere I went, someone would kind of plant a seed for the next place. They'd be like, I think you would really like this place. And that's always kind of like where I ended up going, just like following the breadcrumbs. So I'm curious for anyone who's listening who's like, I want to meet my person, like what do I look for in my astrocartography? What are some of the influencing things that could maybe like set people up for success with that?
Let me start with like your story first of all. Like even though I do astrocartography like for a living, this is what I do. And when people like know what it is, it's like about advising you to go where the best places and more challenging places. There are some people who call them bad places, but I don't believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is that listen to your intuition. If your soul is guiding you somewhere, go. I think now that astrocartography is more popular, people want to know if this place is bad for me. And I don't believe in such a bad place. Sometimes you're called to a more challenging place for a season of your life to complete something or maybe to connect with somebody and then move on. So, for example, China, I went there because I was running away from my problems. I ended up staying there 3 years. Um, Now looking back at astrocartography, I would not go on back live there, even though I love the place and I miss it so much. It's not ideal for me right now for what I want to achieve, but it is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So it was for a season and a chapter. So that's the first thing, like listen to your intuition. Um, Okay, the first question, yeah, the other question people always love to know, where do you meet your partner? I'll tell you what it's not. It's not a simple question, but I'll tell you what most people think it is. Most people, you tell me if you've heard that, go to your Venus line. And it's not as simple as that. Yes, Venus is beauty, Venus is love. But if you have a challenge Venus in your natal chart, or let's say you have Venus conjunct Saturn or Pluto, you're also going to feel that line. And so it's not going to be the line that brings you love. So it's a little bit more complex than that. But don't go to your Venus line or look for your Venus line, for your partner. We want to look at the planet really that rules your love and relationships. So for me, for example, I met my husband on my Jupiter line. But when I was in England, I was also on a Jupiter line. But there are two kind of Jupiter lines. So are you familiar with astrocartography and how you can have four
No,
lines?
no,
So
no.
let's go back a second. Like astrocartography is your natal chart, but it is basically activating specific areas of life. Your chart is so in depth. There's so much in your chart, and transit, progression, activate different cycles, right? Season of your life. Well, we can use astrocartography to also unlock certain seasons of our life. So, for example, my place of birth, let's say, or England for me was a place where was great for education, and Jupiter is the planet of education. That's where I completed my master's. I was blessed to be there. Um, but it wasn't a place for me, let's say, where maybe I would find love. Because Saturn, if I look at my relocation chart, Saturn was sitting on my fifth house. So, but then going back, like I said, I met my husband in my Jupiter IC line. And that's also where I met that's where also where I started my business. And business is, you know what house that is?
10th.
It's fifth house. Self-employment and
Oh,
creativity is actually fifth house. 10th
oh,
house is more like
interesting.
your career and what you're known for. But when it comes to self-employment, creative work, it is the fifth house. And that's also the house of love, like dating, romance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then marriage is the seventh house. And then eighth house is like you two after the marriage.
Which house is us after the marriage? Eighth
Eighth,
house.
yes.
Ah, right, because then it's like joint resources and
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So that's interesting because Montreal is actually close to my Venus line.
Yeah.
And my
What
Venus is
your
in
rising sign?
Cancer. What's that?
What's your rising sign?
Virgo.
Virgo. So, what house does Venus rule for you?
Um, Taurus is my ninth house and Libra is my second house.
Ninth house and second house.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you said that's where you went for education, right? To do your master's.
Yeah.
Is that also
Uh,
a place where did you have a job? How long did you stay there?
Do you wish you knew exactly how to write a sales post to attract soulmate clients using the most powerful gifts from your astrology chart? Well, guess what? Now you can learn how for free. I'm going to share my cosmic copywriting secrets that have helped people to instantly turn strangers on the internet into buyers for their high ticket offers. In my 5-part training series, Cosmic Attraction Copywriting, you'll learn the mindset switch that takes my clients from feeling confused about their content or not feeling fully safe to share their story online to making sales more easily and naturally than ever before, with the astrological placement that unlocks a new level of depth in your storytelling that builds trust 10 times faster with the clients who are genuinely a very aligned fit to work with you. Plus, the messaging tweaks that take my clients from attracting people who can't afford it to easy sales into 5-figure offers with no sales calls. And you'll get clarity on the 3 things your soulmate clients need to hear from you consistently in your message to feel confident and excited to buy your offer. You'll also get my writing process prompts to share your story in a powerful way that stands out to the right people and leads to ready to buy clients popping up into your DMs asking to work with you. Click the link in the description for instant access to Cosmic Attraction Copywriting. I was I was there in the winters and I would fly back to Vancouver to work in film production during the summers. And I was there for on and off I was in Montreal for 10 years. I was like in and out between Montreal and Vancouver for 3 years and then I was like in between New York and Montreal for the and like a ton of other countries in between. But I finally left. I've got my green card finally in 2021. But the last time I lived in Montreal was like 2000 and I don't remember, 18, I think, like full
Okay.
time.
So, would you say that was the place where you studied? You said you completed some education there
Yeah. Yeah.
and work. I'm sure you've worked there. Was it
I actually, did I start my business there? No, I started my business. Well, I started working as a writer in Bali and then I like built out my business when I was in India. Then I stopped back in the UK. Then I went to Toronto. Then I went to New York. So, I mean, to be fair, there was like 2016 where I went back and I kind of like settled back in Montreal for a year. Because when I was in the process of getting my residency, yeah, I was all over the shop.
You'll have to do your astrocartography and look at everything and yeah, make sense of it. But yeah, going back to your like question, I would say it's not a straight answer. Please do not go to a Venus line thinking because it might not be the case for you. And also the other thing is that timing.
Hmm.
So yes, I went to a great line when I happened to meet my husband, but I was also going through 7 transits that showed that someone was coming into my life. So it was the timing and it was the correct line that helped. And that's something I've literally just made a post yesterday about something people don't consider is the timing of your season. Um, if, I just said a few minutes ago, right? Shanghai, like I wouldn't go back to China, wouldn't be ideal for me for this season of my life. I was all over the place. I was on a Neptune. I had my spiritual awakening there, but I had money like coming in. That was the most money I've made as a like in my 20s, but I was barely working. And the reason for that is because of the transits I was going through. Jupiter
Mm.
was in my 10th, Saturn was in my second. So money-wise, I was good, but I was all over the place, even though I was barely working. And so, yeah, astrocartography is a combination. It's perfect when you combine the lines and the timing, the season of your life.
Cool. I love that. So, okay. What tell us also about placements that you look for and like transits that you look for to help with like money and business and client attraction.
So business-wise, if you're launching or working on your business, or if that's your goal right now, I would also planetary lines is like one thing. You also want to see an activation of the fifth house or second house, money and 10th house. But depending what is it that you do, like work-wise, um, like if you have a couple of planets in your natal chart, then we would like to find a location where there's a cluster of planets in your fifth house. Um, what else? Let's say you said you do writing, right? So for example, Mercury parent lines. So Mercury lines might be good for you. That would be something if like writing is a big part of like what you do as a business. Um, what else? Do you ask me about other placements? So I would look at the transits, where I could position your chart. So basically, we're basically turning your Virgo rising, but we would turn your chart to where it would look great for business wise, because this is what you want to focus on. Similarly, like for other things, if love was something that you want to focus on, then we would see what transit you're going through, and also position your chart in a place where there's an activation of seventh house or fifth house.
I think right now in LA, I'm on my Saturn line and oh, I can't remember what the other one was, but I definitely like I felt that since moving here. I'm just like down to business. It's like I got my office set up, I've got my desk set up. Like, as someone who is a digital nomad, it was just me and my laptop and a suitcase for so many years. Now I'm like, I don't even want to travel. Like, I don't even want to get on a flight. I just want to have my routines and like build that momentum. Um,
Is that
and then,
where you started your business? Is
yeah, sorry.
that where you started your business?
No, I started my business back in 2000 and dates. I really struggle with dates, but it was like seven years ago. I
7 years.
I started my coaching business when I was in upstate New York. I already had my copywriting agency. But yeah, I remember I put it in my calendar when I think I just like opened up a Facebook profile for my with sarahmac.com business, and that was in 2017, upstate New York. So yeah, I've definitely like traveled a lot with my business and but yeah, it definitely feels like kind of a new era. New York was pretty another stressful period, like with the pandemic and my partner going through his medical residency. So it was kind of a fresh start for us, getting to LA. He's finally, getting paid more than the janitor in his career and um living in a neighborhood that we love and being close to friends and yeah, and my North Node is in Taurus, so I'm really feeling that shift to just like more consistency and stability and like having a beautiful home and environment and not just, hopping from Airbnbs, although with the fires going on at the moment, that's literally my life again. So
And like speaking of Saturn, I'm glad that you stick with it. Like, because Saturn is actually one of the malefic planets, so like one of the challenging planets people tell you not to go to. But Saturn is a planet, yes, it's a harsh teacher, but it's the planet that rewards us the most. I would actually love to go to my Saturn line. However, and this is another thing people need to keep in mind, I don't want to live in that country. So I would love to go and see what Saturn has for me because I have a strong Saturn, but I don't want to live in that country. Like it doesn't align with me, my values, and so something to like also think about. Astrocartography is amazing. I've made a post on this as well. But you gotta take into consideration other factors, right? Like the community that you have there, whether you think you align with the values of the country. So there's a lot of things to think about, but definitely it does help to know the astrocartography and understand. In summary, like if we I have to explain what astrocartography is, it's basically your compatibility with the land. That's all it is.
I love that. Do you plan like little trips and vacations and retreats and stuff around your astrocartography?
I haven't yet. I am thinking about that this year because I just actually moved to the States last January, and I did get my green card, so I'm able to travel now. I
Congrats.
do think about that. I haven't planned yet. I want to look at it, but I do want to publish a few things and create a course. And yes, I'm thinking about doing that on the right lines for sure.
I love that. And what does it mean when a line goes like smack bang through the middle of a city? Does it have like more potency?
So again, it depends. You do not have to be on a line. That's another thing. People sometimes think I have to be right on a line. Sometimes the line can be too intense and that it's better off. So the further you are away, the less intense it is. I think like 350 miles is it's like low, medium. You can be up like that far from a line, and then it's become more weaker, like 600 miles and over. But yes, if you do find like I'm actually right on a line right now. If you do find it too intense, it's okay to be off a line. There's still an orb, like you can still feel the line even if you're like in the city next.
This is so fascinating. I could literally talk about this with you for hours. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And please tell us, like, what have you got going on at the moment? Where can people find out more about your work?
Right now, you can find me on Instagram. That's the platform I use the most. I am doing redoing my website right now, but Instagram is the best. It's my name, Arwa Ali, and then five. And yeah, and you can send me, and you can book through my link in my bio. And my availability is like open right now. Like next availability is February, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you, Arwa, so much for coming and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Please share this with anyone who you know would love it. Definitely go check out her work, and we'll see you next week. Bye. For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com, and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Are you a healer, witch, creative, or magical entrepreneur who's ready to fill your high-ticket one-on-one or group coaching program, and you want a sales page that will do the selling for you? Maybe you're tired of having a calendar full of sales calls, and you want a sales page that can clearly articulate your offer and guide interested clients to feel ready to buy without needing to talk to you first. Maybe you already have a sales page and people are clicking on it but not reaching out, and you want to feel clear on what to say and what not to say to turn interested people into actual buyers. Having sales pages for my offers has led to filling a high-ticket group coaching program with 10 clients at $1,000 each while traveling on vacation for 2 weeks and launching using repurposed content. Having 5-figure months from sales into my $5,000 evergreen mastermind with no live launching beyond daily social media content. Signing clients into my $17,000 private mentorship program with no sales calls. When you book my Cosmic Sales Intensive, you'll walk away with a full, clear, compelling sales page for your high-ticket offer that will attract ready-to-buy clients and that you can continue to make sales with for years to come. Clients who have been through this offer have created a sales page that went on to sell out a high-ticket relationship coaching mastermind, had 20 applications within 48 hours of publishing, sold several $15,000 private mentorship packages, and even had a 6-figure launch with the sales page and content strategy we created within just a few weeks. Stop losing people with fluffy language that sounds the same as so many others in your industry, and clearly articulate why your work is worth $5,000 to $10,000 plus, even when you sell things like astrology, human design, breathwork, mindset coaching, or energy work. Book your Cosmic Sales Intensive now at withsarahmac.com or via the link in my description.